I'm Richard Grieve at the University of Glasgow, and we're going to be talking about two NERC-funded landscape decisions projects: the interplay of land use, climate and plant biodiversity on the UK stage, and simulating UK plant biodiversity under climate change to aid landscape decision making. These projects rose out of work led by the Natural History Museum as part of the Plants Under Pressure programme that produced the first IUCN sampled Red List Index for plants, as well as an EPSRC studentship at the University of Glasgow that produced a global plant biodiversity simulator to model how plants around the world respond to climate change. Our landscape decisions projects have focused this previous work onto the United Kingdom, working at a finer scale and with better data than is available for the world as a whole, to understand how landscape decisions as well as climate change will influence plant biodiversity in the future. I'll hand over to Claire Harris at Biomathematics and Statistics Scotland to discuss the details.
The UK is home to a wide variety of plant species, over 1,800 in fact. From our gardens to our fields to our wild green spaces, we rely on plants for the food we eat, the air we breathe, and many more services besides. They are also an important sink of carbon, which is becoming increasingly important in the fight against climate change. Climate change threatens the UK with increasing temperatures, sea levels, and extreme weather events. We can decrease our greenhouse gas emissions by altering the way that we live and the way that we look after our plant biodiversity. Protecting green spaces and important carbon sinks like peat bogs, as well as planting more trees, will all help. But how do we make decisions about what is best for the plants and landscapes of the UK? This is where advances in technology can help us. We can start to make a digital twin of the UK, a computer simulation in which we can explore different options and mitigation strategies and make predictions for how plant biodiversity might respond. Building a digital twin of British plants isn't easy, and there are lots of different factors that may influence where plants are found and how they grow, such as climate, different habitat and soil types, and different uses for the land like farming, grazing and forestry. We can begin by dividing the UK into individual patches. In each patch there may be lots of different plant species, living, dying, competing with one another and dispersing their seeds across the local landscape. Here's an example of the UK, divided up into 1 kilometre grid squares and populated with information on wild plant species and where they're found from the new Atlas for British and Irish Flora. We can also impose non-wild species, like fields with different types of crops. We can take these plants and run them through simulations in the digital twin, over which the climate and land management strategies change over time. There are lots of useful data available for past and future predictions of weather from places like the Met Office. So, we have our digital twin and lots of information that we can populate it with. The missing piece of the puzzle is important information about the species themselves. Things like, how suited are they to their environment? How far can their seeds travel? How long do they live? Fortunately, we have found ways of accessing this information to give us more reliable predictions for the future. I'll pass on to Neil Brummett at the Natural History Museum in London to explain how this is done.
Thanks, Claire. Plant functional traits are core attributes that determine a plant's ability to colonise, grow, reproduce and then die. As Claire mentioned, we'd like to know all these different characteristics for all the plant species in the UK. That's quite a tall order for 1,800 different species, but fortunately the flora of the UK has been studied for hundreds of years and is amongst the best known in the world. Most of this information exists in some form, but is found across a variety of books, websites and scientific publications. There's a lot of information in the descriptions that botanists use to identify species, but it's all written in very technical botanical terminology. For example, Erica tetralix, the cross-leaved heath, has very small urceolate flowers, which just means that they are urn-shaped and have a constricted opening. This makes it hard for insects to explore the flower and effectively pollinate it, but cross-leaved heath is autogamic, a species that can fertilise itself. Daisies, on the other hand, have lots of very small tubular flowers grouped together on a disc that are adapted for bees and butterflies to pollinate. This disc acts as a kind of heliport to attract insects, and their long delicate probosces can efficiently suck up the nectar and pollinate several flowers in the process. Other information, for example on water or temperature tolerances or reproductive success, can be found in ecological literature. We can translate all this into functional traits that are going to influence how plants respond to climate change, and then use our digital twin to simulate the effect of warmer temperatures on the survival and success of different species over time. But to capture all this information by hand for every species would take a very long time. Instead, we have adapted software used in medical sciences to find these key botanical terms within plant descriptions, and we use this to automatically produce a matrix of plant traits for UK species. We then check this output against the published information and feed this back to improve the software over several iterations. We can build checks into the computer search to flag up unexpected values based on our knowledge of UK plants and the hundreds of years of scientific research already carried out. And as every scientifically named plant should be accompanied by a botanical description, then, in principle, this approach could be applied to any species in the world. I'll now hand back to Richard to talk about what all this is for.
Thanks, Neil. One of the main focuses of our current project is on UK peatlands, which are important carbon sinks globally, but have often been drained for other uses. However, a lot of their stored carbon is released as they dry. As the climate warms, they're also more likely to dry out more quickly, and the last few summers have seen devastating fires on several upland moorlands. As they dry, they can also be invaded by introduced species like rhododendron and spruce, hastening their conversion from one habitat to another and threatening the characteristic set of plant species that are naturally adapted to these boggy, nutrient-poor habitats. At a site level, we intend to use our simulations to understand the impact of individual management decisions, such as blocking drains, creating bunds to hold water, removing introduced species, or planting trees, on the plant life of peatlands. For the whole of the UK, we will have compiled plant functional traits for every species and be able to simulate their likely responses to various climate change scenarios. As we develop this work further, we hope to be able to assess the impacts of different management decisions and climate change scenarios, not just on plant biodiversity in peatlands, but also on invasive species, disease threats, and carbon storage, as well as across a range of other habitats. And in the future, we'd like to extend this work to other regions of the world.